Welcome to Movie Galaxy. The movie begins with Terry Richmond, a former soldier, riding his bike while listening to music. Suddenly, police officers run into him. Officer Evan Marston and his partner, Steve Lawn, handcuff Terry, saying they tried to stop him, but he says he didn't hear them because of his earphones. The cops don't believe him and start asking him personal questions. Evan searches Terry's backpack and finds a package. He asks Terry if he can open it, but Terry says no. They arrest him and call for a police dog to check the package. Since the dog will take an hour to arrive, Terry, in a rush, agrees to let them search. Inside the bag, they find a lot of cash and think it might be from selling drugs. Terry tells the officers that the money isn't from drugs. It's his money, and he needs it to pay his cousin's bail at the courthouse. Officer Steve says it's almost $30,000 and asks why Terry's cousin is in jail. Terry explains that $10,000 is for the bail, and the rest is to buy a truck to haul boats. His cousin, Mike, got arrested for having weed, but he wasn't selling it. The officers decide to let Terry go but keep the money because they suspect it might be drug-related. Terry insists he earned the money by selling his car and investing in a restaurant called Kan Long Chinese. Officer Evan tells Terry they'll hold the money for 30 days, and if he doesn't fill out the paperwork, he could face jail time for money laundering. Terry reluctantly agrees, and the cops let him go. He then rides to the courthouse, where he meets Elliot, a court clerk. Terry tells Elliot to post his cousin's bail, but Elliot refuses because Terry doesn't have any money. He also informs Terry that the jail is being renovated, and prisoners, including his cousin, are being moved to state prison. Elliot's shift ends, and he leaves, but Terry is upset because his cousin is in danger. Elliot introduces Terry to Summer McBride, another court clerk and future lawyer, to help him. Terry and Summer grab a drink, and she explains that the local police often use legal loopholes to take money from people. If people can't legally get it back, the police keep it, saying it's for funds. Terry then reveals that his cousin Mike helped the police catch some dangerous criminals by giving them information, and if he's sent to state prison, other prisoners might target him. Mike's transfer is scheduled for Thursday, so Summer suggests Terry quickly find more money for bail to save his cousin. They go their separate ways, and Terry calls Mr. Liu, the owner of the Chinese restaurant and his business partner, asking for $10,000. Liu agrees to send the money in a few hours. That night, Terry locates the police department of the officers who detained him, and the next day, he decides to visit. He reports a robbery to Officer Jessica Sims, describing the robbers to look exactly like Officer Evan and Steve. As Terry is giving the report, Officer Steve walks in and stops it, accusing Terry of making up a false crime. The police chief, Sandy Byrne, steps in to support his officers and tells Terry to leave, but Terry offers a deal: keep most of the money and just return the bail money. Sandy, tempted by greed, agrees. Terry asks to see his cousin before the transfer, and Sandy tells him to come at 9 a.m. on Thursday. However, when Terry arrives on Thursday, he finds out the prisoner bus has already left because Sandy deliberately moved up the schedule. Terry quickly catches up to the bus and tells his cousin to ask for protective custody once he reaches the prison. Afterward, Terry meets with Summer, who tells him she found dirt on the cops. They can expose them. She also reveals that the courthouse judge is part of the scheme. As for Mike's bail, Terry needs to bring the money to Elliot's desk as soon as possible. Terry returns to the police department to confront Chief Sandy. He threatens the chief, demanding compliance, but Officer Steve steps in, leading to a scuffle. Terry overpowers them both, disarming and handcuffing them with Officer Sims' cuffs. He takes Officer Sims to the property room, where he discovers a stash of weapons and cash. Honoring his original deal, he takes only $10,000 and leaves the rest. Terry then unloads Jessica's gun and instructs her to pretend to cuff him and drive him away, so the officers outside won't shoot him. She drives Steve's car, drops Terry off in a safe spot, and puts out a police alert for him. Terry rushes to the courthouse and delivers the money to Elliot's desk. Meanwhile, Summer tries to get the judge's signature on the bail. However, the police surround the courthouse and arrest Terry. They take him to the courthouse basement for a medical checkup, where Officer Evan escorts him to meet Chief Sandy. They pick up Sandy and drive off. During the ride, Sandy confesses he made a mistake getting involved with Terry, especially after checking his background. They stop at a hospital, where Sandy hands Terry the rest of his money and has paid off a truck for him, offering him a deal: keep quiet and forget this ever happened, or face 30 years in prison for attacking the officers. Sandy also reveals that Mike was attacked in prison and is being flown to that hospital. Filled with anger and grief, Terry accepts the deal, but Sandy warns him never to return to the town or risk being killed. When Terry enters Mike's hospital room, he finds that his cousin didn't survive. Terry asks Summer for a ride back to his town, and they soon realize a police car is tailing them, and Terry asks her to play cool. She tries to explain to Terry that there have been more cases like Mike's, and that the police need to be exposed for their corruption. Terry, frustrated, brushes off her concerns. The cop car follows them to the county lines and then leaves them be. Summer drops him off, and before parting ways, he gives Summer his number for emergencies and says goodbye. Later that night, Summer wakes up to find that someone has broken into her house and drugged her. She realizes the police are behind it when she sees a police car magnet on her refrigerator. In a panic, she calls Terry, who rushes to her house. He breaks in and finds her in the shower, thankfully alive. Summer explains that the police injected her with a drug she used to take in the past. She lost custody of her daughter because of her history with drugs and now fears that if she's tested for drugs, she'll lose any chance of seeing her daughter again. Terry reassures her and sends her off to work, promising to figure it out. To Summer's surprise, the judge handling her custody case asks for a drug test, signaling that he may be working with the corrupt cops. Petrified, she complies and provides a urine sample, knowing her future is on the line. Meanwhile, Terry runs into Officer Steve, who, along with his partners, blocks Terry's way. Though Terry cooperates, Steve shoots him for returning to town. Injured, Terry fights back, manages to tase Steve, and escapes into the fields. Terry abandons his truck and makes his way to a local Chinese hotel, where he calls Summer and asks her to bring burner phones. Summer arrives at the restaurant with the phones and finds Terry being patched up by Mr. Liu. Together, they devise a plan to gather evidence on the corrupt cops and expose them. Going incognito, Terry and Summer break into the judge's house and confront him about the corruption. The judge confesses that he has been working with Officer Sandy's department for a while. When the department ran out of funds, Sandy began illegally raising money through questionable searches and legal procedures, forcing defendants to fight losing battles in court. In return, the judge received money as part of the scheme, and some of the funds were even funneled into government programs to make it appear legal. The judge also reveals that the police's illegal activities, including traffic stops like the one Terry experienced, were all recorded on dashcams, which could be used as evidence to bring them down. Armed with this information, Terry and Summer decide to steal the dashcam footage, which is hidden in the catacombs of the courthouse. As they sneak inside, they discover that the corrupt cops are already there and preparing to destroy the evidence by setting the room on fire. Summer quickly extinguishes the flames, and they steal the memory cards. To avoid suspicion, they set the fire again before making their escape. While Terry waits in the car, Summer goes back to retrieve her urine sample. Unfortunately, she gets caught by the officers. Terry, noticing Summer being kidnapped, follows the cops to a shady location. When they split up, Terry rams his car into one of the officers' vehicles. He subdues the officer, handcuffs him, and forces him to use his radio to contact Sandy. Sandy offers to trade Summer for the stolen memory cards, and Terry agrees to meet at Rebel Ridge by dawn. At the meeting spot, Sandy's men wait, but Terry doesn't show. Instead, Terry calls Sandy, while Officer Evan reports finding Terry's vehicle. However, Evan discovers that Terry isn't in the car. Officer McGill is, taped to the car by Terry. Meanwhile, Terry has infiltrated Sandy's police department, ripping open a back wall to gain access. Officer Jessica, the police contact Summer had mentioned earlier, alerts the rest of the force to Terry's location. Inside the station, Sandy rushes to secure his hidden stash of money, but Terry has armed himself with weapons from the armory. Instead of using lethal rounds, Terry shoots Sandy with beanbag rounds. Jessica arrives and, being Summer's friend, Terry trusts her with the stolen memory cards. He asks her to release the footage. As Sandy's men close in, Terry douses Sandy's money in gasoline, ready to burn it. Jessica, however, doesn't want any more violence, so she disarms Terry and takes him outside. Officer Steve arrives, stomping on the memory cards, and reveals that they knocked Summer out, planning to kill Terry with no witnesses. Officer Evan, realizing the wrong in their actions, tries to protect Terry, but Sandy shoots him in the leg and takes his gun. With guns pointed at each other, Terry signals to Jessica, who lowers her weapon. Seizing the moment, Terry escapes with Evan. Hiding behind a car, Terry throws smoke grenades to cover their retreat. Evan tells Terry to activate the car's dashcams, which will automatically upload the recordings after 3 minutes. Terry takes down the cops one by one without killing them and eventually confronts Steve, getting revenge for being shot earlier. He finds Summer unconscious in Steve's car and activates the dashcams. With Summer in the car, Terry drives to rescue Evan, but Steve clings to the vehicle, trying to get inside. Summer regains consciousness and manages to push Steve off. Sandy and his men, along with Jessica, give chase, but Jessica crashes into Sandy's car, allowing Terry to escape. Terry drives to the hospital, where Summer and Evan are admitted to the emergency ward. Before leaving, Terry removes the dashcam storage drive from the car, keeping it with him as evidence to expose Sandy and bring down the corrupt cops. Thanks for watching, and make sure to subscribe so as to watch our latest uploads.